Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain. That is Kenny Simpson. Coach, we are back at it again. You just keep chugging along right over there in Northeast Arkansas. Finally got to watch one of your games on live stream. Oklahoma played most of their games on Thursday this week because of fall break. And so I got to finally watch you play on Friday, and that was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, kids played well. It was a big game. That team had challenged us to win the conference last year, and so we knew it'd be tough going into their place. And I think that defensively we played about as good as we could play. Had one bust. They had a big play on I think it kind of was in and out of our hands, but defense came to play, and then offensively we were able to kind of assert our will running the ball. And if you play us and we can run the ball, that's usually not a good sign.
Yeah, I was very impressed with your defense. Of course, I watched it to watch you do your thing on offense because we work together, and I'm always trying to watch what you guys are doing. But I think they drove down inside the 5 the first drive, and y'all stopped them on 4th down or goal line stand. And I just thought, man, that's awesome. Like to have the ability to just truly bend but don't break all the way down into the red zone. And I don't remember if y'all got an interception or stopped them on 4th down, but
it was a pick on 4th down, so kind of the same.
Yeah.
No, defense has played well for us. We're very blessed, good defense coordinator, and we try to put all our best athletes. Our quarterback played the whole game at corner. When we get in these big games, we talked about that I think a couple of weeks ago. Our best kids are going to play defense, and they responded well. Red zone's tough. If you're a spread team and you get in the red zone, what are you going to do down there? Because now we can kind of constrict our defense quite a bit, and when we do that, we're not bad down there. And of course, kids, it's all about the kids. They played really, really well.
Yeah, well, I was very impressed. It was a great game. I was texting back and forth with Jamie a little bit, and she was like, kind of one of those games we can't let up. This could get out of hand at any time. Very Western. And I was like, well, you started out with I think 2 interceptions and your own touchdown, so I think we're going to be okay. And then especially come out after half and kind of opened it up. So
yeah, 97-yard drive there to start the game was big. And I think a lot of guys that listen and they're coaching. A lot of times you kind of want to maybe be really aggressive, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for us, we felt like the body blows. You go on a 97-play drive, and I don't think we threw the ball. And later on in the game, that's going to open up so much other stuff.
Yeah, 4 yards of carry. I remember we used to talk about 3 yards in a cloud of dust, right? But that was like this offensive mentality of you just can't be stopped. But you think about it from the defense, like, and when every handoff is 4 yards, it's tough. Like, what do you mentally you can't? It's hard to get kids to refocus, right? You get into that, we'll make them make a mistake, but man, when you can go on a 14-play 97-yard drive, you're what are you going to do?
Those runs, we talked to our kids at halftime. It was 14-6 at the half, and felt like we were playing pretty well, but it's still a 1-score game.
Yep.
We said, hey guys, those 7 or 8 yard runs are about to turn into 20, because they're going to start getting tired, and they did in the second half. I think we went up 38-6 in the third quarter. So it really quickly kind of turned. I think a lot of times as young coaches, you can be a little impatient. We felt like we could win, but sometimes you got to kind of let the game come to you. And I thought our kids did a good job with that.
That's great advice. Very good advice. Sweet. Well, let's jump into this quote of the week, Kenny, and then we'll move on to our ads.
Yeah, quote of the week. This is from Team Themes Volume 5. It's the chapter on efficiency. So it talks about trying to be efficient with your time and what does that really mean. So this quote is from Tim Ferriss. The quote says, being busy is most often used as a guise for avoiding the few critically important but uncomfortable actions. The idea of we busy ourselves with things that don't matter. Sometimes we do that on purpose to avoid conversations or actions or things that we know really need to happen. And we all do that, because we don't want to handle that. So we find other things we can be busy with. Sometimes we don't do it on purpose. Sometimes as a coach, you just get caught up in all these pointless things that don't really affect your job. And you don't really get to do the things that really matter. So trying to be efficient or focus on what matters first, then deal with the other, blocking out the noise and dealing with what matters.
Yeah, I love it. It's a good point. Got to be careful and check ourselves sometimes. Let's real quick, man, share some ways a coach can make things simple for his staff and athletes. All right, guys, we're watching live. This is where we're going to go in and throw in some digital ads. We appreciate you guys coming in and watching live, by the way. I don't make sure you're communicating. If you have comments, questions, or whatever as we work through this, please do throw them on the box so I can put them up on the screen. Here we go. All right, Coach, thank you for that. We want to just shout out our ads one more time. Ace Sports has been with us for a couple of years now. They've been very, very good to us, from us traveling to when them coming and speaking at the gun tee clinics. It's been a wonderful relationship with those guys. Work with Mark Bridges, mark.bridges@acesports.com. Shoot him an email if you have any questions. If you're trying to get into the video boards or any of the ad revenue is amazing through what they do, and they teach you how to use it. So if you're a guy stuck in the Stone Age and you're still trying to, sell chocolate bars to make your program run, there's definitely more modernized ways to do that. But you don't have to do it alone. They will come out and hold your hand and show you the ropes. It's great deal. So check out mark.bridges@acesports.com. And of course, Doug over at Winning Edge Performance Analytics. I still think he's got the fast track to the next big thing in analyzing in-game football to help you, whether your staff's large or small, whatever it is. I think he can kind of give you an upper hand or maybe you need it now for playoffs, whatever it is. I think he'll get you there. So don't forget to use the promo code 20OFFcoaching101 to give you 20% off your first year. Gun tee clinics. I know we get started in January, right before AFCA. So the first one's there in Charlotte. What can people expect this year, Coach? What's going on at these gun tee clinics?
Yeah, man, excited to get back. At each clinic, I usually will, when the season's over, which hopefully I've got a little time for that. I'll usually reach out to maybe a local guy or two that's had some success running the gun tee or even doing something else, and try to bring in at least another speaker or two to try to offer a few things. Because I know we have to hit the basics at every clinic. I mean, we're going to talk about down block, and we got to go through that because that's something I got to go through every year. And so I do things that would help me. So we try to offer, alternatives for the guys that, hey, I've heard that last couple of years. I'd like to hear something different during that session. And then, of course, we update. I update with new plays and new concepts and new ways, new wrinkles we're running. Some of our RPO game we've kind of adjusted this year, so we'll present that. And then we try to have at least one or two sessions that are just on new things that we're doing. Hey, this year we ran a lot of flash motion, quick motion with the running back, and how did we use that to help our offense, and how did we use a lot of like orbit motion with our wing, and we reuse a lot of our drop back game more than in the past. And so clinics will always have the basics. Then they're going to have those new wrinkles, try to have a guest speaker or two depending on the site. And then we always do the install, and I think that's the best part. When you get to watch the kids come out and they run the offense and they do it, I think that's always the best part of any clinic we can do. And each year I try to, it might be a different play or different formations we give them. So guys that have been there can say, okay, these are the different wrinkles he'll use to run the same type of ideas.
I got to participate in that install last year in Boston. They had gone on break or something, and so they were missing some of their kids. It's so simple. Like the offense was so, hey, here's your two tags. Here's what they tell you to do. Go execute. We're just running this one play, and I love it, man. And of course, I'm a big tagging system guy too. So I just think that's the way football is headed. Is run a few base things really, really well and just dress them up. So if you haven't gotten to one of those yet, show up. Obviously, Batesville's what do you call it, Coach?
National clinic.
The national clinic. They're in
It's
Batesville,
longer.
America.
Yeah, Batesville's a longer. So if you have the opportunity, all the clinics will be fun. They'll all be kind of cool places. And those should be up pretty soon. You can sign up. We do run out of space at a few of the regional ones for sure. Batesville one is longer. We go all day Friday, all day Saturday. It also features all of our defensive stuff. So a lot of guys that, hey, we also want to see your 3-4 swarm stuff. That's at that clinic. So there'll be a lot more options if you have the ability. And then we record that clinic. So if you decide to go to any clinic, you get the recordings from the national clinic. So you get more stuff.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. Sign up for a Gun T clinic. Find a way to get out to one of those. You won't regret it. I assure you that. You'll be it's a lot more in depth. Kind of hearing the questions that other coaches are asking, right? Like, because sometimes you can't think of everything when they come in and start asking their questions. It's really good. Your 7.0 book is coming out. Gun T.
Yeah,
7.0.
Jamie just showed me the cover. It looks super cool. Shockingly, it's 2 guards pulling. Imagine that. Following him, and we're reading the RPO. So cover looks good, and there's 125 pages. You know, basically, anytime we do these updates, it's new stuff. So if you're trying to run the gun team, you're new, start with the original. But these are, hey, this year, here's the things that we kind of added in or adjusted or modified. And so that one's got a lot of really cool stuff. Excited about it. Should be coming out here next month or two.
I saw your annual what is in each of the books post the other day on Facebook or Twitter or wherever it was. And I just thought, man, you got so many now. You really do have to kind of map it out for people. You're going to get the basics, and then you're going to get whatever, you know, for that season. So I think it's really neat, man. If you guys haven't started collecting those books, honestly, just getting the full program is probably where you want to be. And that way you get all the new stuff anyways. But if you're just looking to get started, you're a youth guy, whatever, and you can't, you know, they get expensive too, right? If you can't,
then
can't go out and get it all at once.
Print all that stuff. Yeah.
Start with the first book, read it, get some install done, and then start figuring out where you need to add to make your program better. Because you know, everybody needs something different. So I think that's my favorite part of the books growing so much is there's different, you can do different additions now. Maybe you have a quarterback this year. Maybe you don't. Maybe you need to confuse people with formations. So you find the book that's right for you. All right, Coach, I think that's it, man. I think we talked through all the ad stuff. Let's jump into the question here. So we are talking about, you know, kind of the fundamentals and coaching up these pulling linemen. Regardless if you're a buck sweep team or maybe you're pin and pull. I'm, of course, a big GT counter guy. I love GT and GH. Maybe you're just running power. Like all these involve pulling a big guy. Dart. We're breaking down film right now on a dart team. So all these are just blocking down and pulling to kick or pulling the wrap. It's pretty elementary at its base, but we know that the minutia, the details, that you can get into some stuff there, and you should, right? Because you need to be able to solve problems on the fly. It's nothing in football is perfect, or we would all be running it. So, let's talk first. Let's just talk about the benefits of gap scheme football. So it's just leaving zone by the wayside, getting into block downs and pulls. So what are some of those benefits of gap scheme in football?
Yeah, I mean, there's several. You know, we run that, and so obviously I'm a big believer that I think gap scheme is a better thing for us. I can't say that, you know, zone is not good. I think there's guys that are doing really, really well running zone, but I think to run zone effectively and well, you need one of two things that you may not have. You need a larger offensive line that can get a little bit of movement, or you need a really talented running back who can kind of see the cuts, because you're putting a lot of your success in his hands.
Right.
That's why the NFL heavily runs zone, because they have elite running backs. And those guys, for the most part, you give them a crease and they're going to find it. Okay, so that's the benefit of zone. I think the benefits of gap scheme are, one, if you have a smaller line, it can allow them to be a little more successful, because now you can use their speed and pulling and kind of getting out into space. Like Daniel said, be that Coach Holmes says, they're working 7th grade football. Sorry, guys that are downloading this. My coaches are messing me on Facebook. So anyway, getting smaller linemen out in space or allowing them to wrap up to the second level. You know, I think you can involve H-backs and tight ends in that same world. So you're taking more athletic, potentially smaller people and allowing them to excel by getting them onto the second level. And then for the most part, your down blocks, and we're going to talk about that in the next question, but your down blocks, I think, are a little bit easier to teach, and there's a little more fluidity you can kind of teach it with than than like a straight zone. We're trying to knock a guy backwards. I think it helps your kids understand the design of the play. When you're running zone, especially with younger players, there's a lot of if this or if that, or I come off or he comes off. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to spend a lot of time doing that. Gap scheme seems to be a quicker, easier install, depending on what you're running. There are obviously things you got to work through and you got to teach. For the most part, everybody understands we're trying to run this ball A gap, B gap, C gap, wherever you're trying to run that ball. Running back kind of understands this is where we're trying to go, and you have a lead blocker. So it cleans up questions he may or may not have. It simplifies a lot of schemes because a lot of times if you're rule-based, you know what your rule is and who you're supposed to block, and there's not as much double teaming. Now, the guys that run power, they may have some double teams involved there. But generally, there's not as much going on as there would be if you're not pulling anybody. Rules-based, to me, allows it to work against most fronts. I would think you run inside zone, 10 personnel, and they go 2-4 eyes or 3 techniques. It gets a little fuzzy in there with who's doing what. Most gap scheme stuff, you can kind of account for whatever front you might see. And then finally, I think I put in there, it's really good offense, I think, to involve H-backs, lead blockers, and so it's a way to run a simpler, I think, cleaner type of offense. And again, I'm not trying to down teams that run zone. You run split zone, you can use H-backs. I get all of that stuff. This one seems to be an easier, quicker install. And then, of course, that allows you, in my opinion, to run a couple wrinkles off of it.
Yeah, the ability to just give a kid, and I know you use gap down backer, but that's a very simple set of rules that doesn't really need to change. Like there's not, I don't know if there's anything that makes it change, right? I mean, we've given you and honestly, gap and down are really the same block in today's football because fronts are moving around so much. So you'd almost just tell them gap backer, stay on your tracks, just run that way, pick up whatever shows up, and you're going to be okay. Making it right with your non-negotiables or whatever you need them to do that week to make sure they're successful so the play gets off. But I think that has to be the best part of gap scheme football is taking your O-line and just letting them play ridiculously fast. They need to communicate some, but if the stadium's rocking and rolling and they can't hear each other, it truly doesn't matter. I'm running at my angle that direction. I'm picking up whatever shows up. Right, I don't really have to talk to the guy next to me. In fact, if you're like you are, Kenny, you're running buck sweep, those guys have a guard between them, so they can't. It's going to be a lot harder for them to communicate. So I think that's good. We're in zone. You need to be out calling your doubles. You got covered and uncovered, and you got all these rules that the kids have to show up and follow. Once again, I love zone scheme. I love coaching it. It's more, I think, fun to coach because there's a lot of if-thens. There's a lot of rules that you're walking the kids through. But when it comes to just absolutely, dominating someone and doing it with ease, keeping the simplicity, I guess, I think gap scheme has to be the way. Also feel like it kind of allows you to dictate where the ball's going to go. Right. I'm not so much worried about what the other team does and making them dictate things. And now I'm reading a bunch of stuff. It's like, hey, we're going to run. We run everything, mainly A gap, but if you're running true power, B gap power, right? We're going to run it out here. We're not going to let anybody stop us, or C gap, wherever you're running your power. We're going to make the lane right here. And it kind of gives those, especially those offensive linemen, a little bit of pride and like, yeah, we're going to make sure that we're running it over there, whatever it takes. Same thing if you're running trap or GT, GH, whatever you're trying to run, right? These things, you're making the terms of that next play instead of reading a guy and trying to make him wrong, which you add the RPO to it and you're kind of doing the same thing there, right? You're adding that option somewhere else. But we know, like we found out that not everybody can read things. And so the RPO game can quickly get turned off if your quarterback goes out there and throws a couple, makes a bad read and throws an interception or throws it out there and gets tackled for a loss or something. It's kind of the same thing in zone football, but now you've taken the core of your offense, your run game, It's hard to turn that off. So if he's making bad reads, you're kind of stuck with it, right? Where gap scheme, we can just dictate and really put the ball where we want it. So all right, so we want to talk kind of getting back to those pulling guys. Yours are two guards. Mine are generally a guard and a tight end or guard and a tackle, but it's really the same stuff, right? We have to have a kick out. We don't have to have a wrap, but we like to have a wrap. So what are some your finer coaching points to those linemen that are pulling over there?
Yeah, I mean, this could be probably a whole podcast here, just talking about pull kick and pull wrap and how you teach that. But I'll just give you a couple basics. For us, we don't really allow our guys to log. We don't really like that. I think we struggle trying to, if you give a kid two options, he's going to choose the easier of the two options. And so you start telling a guy he's pull kicking or he can wrap. Well, it's going to be a whole lot easier and not going to hurt as bad if I try to wrap the guy every time. And so we just say we're going to pull kick. So I think that you need to understand if you're going to do pull kick and pull wrap, pull kick and maybe pull log, letting him read that,
Right.
You're going to need to spend more time probably even than I do on how to understand when to log, when to kick, what that looks like. I think if you're going to teach the log, which a lot of guys have done, if you don't know what log means, basically I'm pulling to kick a guy on the end of the line of scrimmage. That guy is a spill player, and he's getting underneath me and not letting me kick him out. A lot of guys counter to that as saying, all right, we're going to pull kick. And if he runs that technique, just go ahead and turn your body and we'll just run to the edge. So when I say that, I'm sorry. Hopefully now we all kind of have a clear picture. If you're going to teach that style, you got to spend a lot of time on knowing how to read that, knowing how to run your feet. Because if you don't teach that, you're going to have a whole lot of grabbing and slinging, which leads to holdings. So we don't teach that. We pull kick. And so for us, one of the words we try to use with our guard, and we're actually working on this week because we didn't do great with it last week, we didn't think, is get downhill. Like open the door. So we're going to, open our outside hand and throw it, basically like you're pulling a lawnmower. Open our hip, get horizontal to the line of scrimmage. Then we want to come towards the line of scrimmage as we're running to kick. So we actually want to be working downhill or towards the line. And then we're very big on understanding if we pull to the right, we need to hit with our right shoulder. If we pull right, hit right. If we want to pull to the left, we need to hit with our left shoulder, because if we do that, regardless of how violent it is, we should create a gap. And we should get a kick, which creates what we're trying to create, a gap. If you're running power, you do the same thing with your H-back. Pull right, hit right. Pull left, hit left. And again, a big thing for us is to kind of work downhill. You want to root that guy out. Worst thing in the world you can do on pull kick is the guy beats you inside. If he beats you inside, the play's dead. So understanding like that's what we've got to do, number one. Okay. Other things we'll do on the kicks is let the guy understand, hey, it may not be like you might not be able to just open your hip and run straight down the line, and because we may not get movement like we hope we do. This year we're pretty good over there, so we're getting some movement. Some years or some teams we're going to play, they got a dude over there too. He's pretty good. Yeah. So our down block might not be what we call clean. Like it might not be we're blowing the guy back. We hope we do. We want to. Doesn't always work that way. So a lot of times for us, you have two options there. We choose to have our linemen play at depth, which means we want our helmet to be on the center's hip across the board. That allows us, when we pull an open, to kind of have a yard or two of play, where if we don't get movement, our guard's deep enough to kind of get around the trash to the kick. Okay. Or if you have an H-back, same thing. If you don't want to play that way, you want your guys closer to the line of scrimmage, then I think you really have to almost tell your pull kicks to take a depth step, get deeper, at least one, off of the ball, then work downhill. Otherwise, you may have issues with him running into guys on the end of the line of scrimmage, that aren't moving their guys off the ball. We all want to kind of work in a perfect world when we do walkthroughs of, hey, we're going to get this double team here on power. We're going to blow this guy up. And then, Daniel, you play him and that guy's 380 and going to Oklahoma. Well, you're probably not going to get a lot of movement. So we got to get around it.
Yeah.
So you got to work that kind of stuff on kicks. On pull wraps, biggest issue we struggle with is our guys will get too wide. They won't hug what we call the wall. We're trying to run, doesn't matter, buck, power, our version of belly, it doesn't really matter. We want to hug the wall. Like the wall is all the guys that are down blocking. As soon as we get on that, we need to be hugging that thing, which means we need to be as close as possible to the last guy down blocking, and our eyes have got to be inside. Like that's where we struggle the most with most pullers, is we'll get out there, we'll get too wide, our eyes will be outside, and the guy we're designed to block is usually an inside linebacker, scrapes underneath that and makes a tackle. That's usually the biggest struggle we have. So you got a couple ways you can teach that. Old school pull wrap, where we're going to go ahead and maybe take 2 steps sideways and then kind of get a little depth, and run. Or if you're athletic enough, a lot of people are going to what we call the skip pull, where now our lineman will never keep his shoulders square the whole time. So he's moving horizontally by skipping. He'll take his outside foot and swing it behind his inside foot to allow him to get movement, but he keeps his shoulders square. So a lot of guys like that because it does keep your eyes inside. Issues with that could be your guy might not be athletic enough to do that, depending on where you are, who you're working with. May not be able to get wide enough doing that, so you got to kind of work through what can we do best. But the main things are make sure we're keeping eyes inside, we're getting around it. And then the same deal I would say with the pull kick guy, understand that you're going to have to get a little bit of depth to get around it. Like we hope we're blowing guys off the ball. And if we are, you don't have to listen to this podcast because it doesn't really matter what you're doing.
Run whatever you want.
You're right. But if you're living in the real world, where they got guys that are good too, we're going to have to get a little bit of depth to get around whatever we're getting around and then quickly get back inside. One of the things we've tried to do to help is we will work our drill with our pods where we have both our guards are working or whatever we're working there. We'll have his partner. So we'll have the next guard line up as an inside linebacker, and I intentionally will put that guy super tight. So now we've got to get around. It almost looks like you're running a U. Right. Like you're getting out, around, and my eyes are coming back inside to get that block. And then the other good part about that drill is they're coaching each other up. So like once that guy has gone, he's the linebacker, and the next guard's working that drill. So they're kind of working in partners. I think it's important you don't have coaches stand there as much if you can have kids stand there. Because if their kids are standing there, they know the problems they're dealing with. They can give the different looks we need to see. And it's making them think while we're running a drill. We're not just running a drill kind of blindly. So it's a couple of things we've done to help ourselves with pull kicks and pull wraps.
It's all super great. The difference in logging something and trying to kick it, of course, I love the fact that you just tag it. You just have a different play that, hey, we're gonna log this guy because we can see that what he's trying to do, and we're just gonna make this an outside run play. I think that's wonderful. Getting kids to read it. Once again, just go back to the zone ball. It gives you the best chance to make the defense wrong. It absolutely does. But what's on paper and what's in real life sometimes doesn't marry up, right? So, yes, on paper, if I can kick him or log him, I'm going to ensure the ball goes to the path of least resistance. However, kids often can read things wrong. Those defensive ends, look, it's like trying to teach linebackers their key reads. When's the last time you saw a great pass set by a high school offensive lineman? Like, it doesn't happen. A lot of times they all stand straight up. Even if they're trying to down block, right? So you tell them a high hat, but it's the same as every other play. They stand up, then they go where they think they're supposed to go. So it kind of gets in that. The read can be very muddy because that high school defensive lineman, defensive end, maybe, or outside back or whatever you're kicking on that play, Maybe he doesn't have great technique. And that's another piece. Like, who is the kick guy, right? Is it a little squirrely kid that he can make me wrong with just his speed? And now I'm supposed to read him, and I've got all these options. So very quickly, the read on a kick or log, I agree with you, Coach. It can get too variable. So just telling them, hey, you're kicking that dude. Make them make the ball go inside. Something we have with our kicks, and I'm sure other people have seen it as well, is our kids, all of a sudden, they've got a little head start, right? You let this lineman get into his little fly 10, so he gets to turn and run, and now shows up this little kid, and he's going to try to blow him up. Man, we see the big, they charge their arms. They're really cocked, ready to go off, and then they whiff, right? Because the little kid's like, well, I'm not going to let you hit me. Like, and so we start talking about violence of action when they get there versus the very dramatic build up and the, just being a bull in a china closet kind of. You can't see red. You have to tactically or technically be sound to the point that, yes, I'm hugging because you got to stay tight. I'm going to work inside of this. And when I get there, I'll be violent. I'll be aggressive, but I can't spend 3 or 4 steps of this run charging up to hit that kid because he'll just make me wrong. I love how you're coaching it get downhill because and I've seen it on film that I break down, and I've seen it in my own film. We're pulling and we're just horizontal to the line of scrimmage. So now we've opened up seams inside of us, and outside of us where that kid can kind of move around, whoever we're trying to kick. So when you keep things tight, you get downhill, you're in the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have a choice. Even if he's squeezing a down block, he knows you're coming to rock his world. He has to make a decision very quick. And it might be he just goes back underneath you. Now he's in there with the rest of the D line, and the log just kind of accidentally, naturally happens. Our GT counter has turned into like a double swabber several times because our guard is big and mean, and the people don't want to get hit by him. They'll dive off in there. They're a defensive end that's like, hey, defensive tackle, let's hold hands on this play because I don't want to get hit. That works for us, right? Like if that's where you want to go, if you want to go diving for cover, we'll double wrap and go to the house. We don't care. That's just one less person we have to block. So violence in action when you get there, but you can't let them be out of control trying to be violent. They have to be violent by being technically sound. And when they show up, they can really, be aggressive with that kid. But you can't whiff. I think, big thing we're trying to still, 2 weeks ago, I was watching film of ours and the understanding that if you're the pull wrapper, that has got to be so tight. We teach them hug the wall. We teach them helmet to helmet, swap paint. We try to use all these things that tell a kid internally, you need to be body to body when you come around this block because you can't leave a seam for a backer to fit because they're taught. I teach backers, right? They're taught exactly how to beat that. See a pulling guard, you follow him, you fill the first open window. Well, that first open window is usually right off the last down block and right where the pull wrapper is supposed to fit that gap. So if you're not tight, that's just as bad as letting a kick man get underneath you, right? It's going to be the same concept. Now there's a defensive player in the backfield, and we don't have another hat to account for him. We have to tell our guys a lot, too, about, you can't pass color. We tell them you can't pass color, meaning the opposing team's color. Yes, you're supposed to pull and wrap to an inside backer, but if he blitzed weak side A-gap or backside A-gap, and now he shows up back there, you can't just let him go because, no, I'm supposed to wrap and get the next guy. We don't have another blocker, right? You're it. So if color shows up, if the opposing color shows up, you've got to pick that up. And maybe you look like a double kick this play because they just ran him back there. You just kind of have to do it. We do it with our kick guys too. Sometimes your down block just gets beat, right? They slant underneath it or slant right off the back of it, and they show up in the backfield. Hey, baby, we're trying to run power. Now we're running trap because it is very inside, which is we teach our running backs aim A gap and everything and widen as the wall is built, right? For that reason, because if something leaks and my kick man is now picking up a defensive tackle that was a 0 or a 1 tech a minute ago, power's now trap. But the rules don't change. Kick him, pull right, block right. The back is already aiming A gap. The swabber can only fit. He can't run past the kick man. So now you just get an extra swabber or an extra tight swab, and we're kind of off to the races. So that's why I think it's so imperative that all this is so tight to eliminate those seams where defensive players can try to stick their nose, and then all of a sudden your kids, it doesn't look like it did on paper, coach. And so that, you get into the variations of how kids or guys are trying to stop it. One last piece here on your pull wrap guy, the speed versus their fit. And it goes back to being tight. But kids get so worried about getting there fast. And so I think it's imperative that you make, especially if you're running counter and you're trying to get a tackle or an H-back from way out there to pull all the way across and wrap. We've gotten away. A lot of guys have gotten away from counter steps from their tailbacks, right? Used to be counter was the opposite of power. So you would show power, you get a step or two in, you put a foot in the ground, and you come back. You make a cut, and you call those counter steps. We've kind of gotten away from that in our run game, especially us teams like ours who run out of a pistol. So we don't have we're not in sidecar. We're not in true gun where that back has to come over and get the ball. He's downhill right now. And so it's changed that timing, but it's made our tackles and H-backs feel like they're in a rush. So now they're coming around there with a lot of speed, trying to get to that wrap man because they need to beat a back into the hole. But it causes us to be very wide. Okay, you're taking a non-sports car, putting him on a NASCAR track and asking him to take this turn really, really fast and really, really tight. They can't do both. They can be fast or they can be tactfully tight. And so you tell that big boy to get running. We've all seen him run around those hula hoops and stuff, right? It's not pretty. So you've got to make that distinction on whether you want that tackle or H-back and that swab guy. If you want him to be fast and hurry up and get over there, if you want him to be tight and actually hug the wall, get his eyes inside and get to the backer he's supposed to get to. So I guess I'm saying that is you make sure that your running back steps are timing up with whatever big guy you've got pulling. Now, Kenny, you do a little different. You have a strong side and a quick side. So you might be running your fourth string running back as a tackle, and he might be able to kind of pull around there and be a little tighter. Right. But
I think at the back, I mean, you mentioned it, you got to coach up the running back. Like a lot, we struggle, and even this year, we've got a returning guy at running back. We got to kind of stay on him. Hey, man, slow down just a bit. Like let the guard get where he's supposed to get before they get so excited they're getting the ball, And so we've got to kind of, hey, calm down just a bit, let it develop, then go be you.
Yeah. And, we've coached that into him for years of, get the ball and get downhill violently, right? Plug it. Let's go. You can't dance. You can't move. You can't do all this stuff. We forget that the difference in a guy who's dancing and trying to cut 3 times in the backfield is much different than a guy who's patiently can slow his feet, wait for the moment to happen, and now he gets that burst, that acceleration, and get through the hole. So if you're a running back coach and you listen to this because you're like, I need to show my offensive line coach that he's doing things wrong, could also just be you. So, you gotta make sure it's just music in motion, right? It's gotta fit, all has its time. Let's jump into third part here, coach. How are you marrying your down blocks with these pulling alignments? So we've talked about how ugly this can be. It can get a lot of trash all of a sudden, especially you're a power guy, and we no longer double team in our power because of this entire point. But kind of how are you ensuring those down blocks marry with what your pulling guys are doing?
Well, I think number one, they just need to understand the concept of what you're trying to do. Like what is the concept of a down block? And I think there's times that we assume kids know things and then they don't. So what are we trying to accomplish here? If we're down blocking him, what's our goal? And you talk to him and keep him inside. So understand, hey, if we're running down, whatever we're running, if you're blocking down, we're running the ball probably outside of you. Your job is to keep him sealed. So once they know that, it allows them to kind of self-correct at times. It also allows them to know, like, how can we lose? Where can we not lose? We cannot lose with a guy crossing our face. That's unacceptable. Like, that's the only thing that you're going to get pulled over here and reamed out pretty good about is if you allow the guy we're trying to down block to get outside of you. Like, that's what you're going to get in trouble with the most. Okay. So if I know that, I now know, okay, if I have to give up, I don't want to. If I have to give up a little bit of penetration to get him sealed, that's okay. And if I If he knocks me back a little bit, but I can get my body turned where he can't cross my face, that's okay. We call that knowing how to lose. Like, we don't want to lose, but if we lose this way, we're still okay. We're still okay if you lose this way, because there's times we may be asking you to down block a guy who's better than you. And we're okay with that, because you don't have to whip him. You have to keep him inside of you. And that allows your kids a little bit of freedom to understand, okay, I can do this. Even if this guy might be physically superior, I can do what I'm asked to do. So we're okay there. The other thing I think you've got to do is you got to make sure you work with your kids on understanding, what is he trying to beat you with? Like, how is he playing? Is he trying to beat you with speed and just shoot upfield and then get down the line? I got to step flatter. Did I step really flat and he did a spin move or a swim move or something, and he got over top of me? Well, now I can self-correct. Where am I getting beat will dictate the angle, not how long it is or none of that stuff, the angle of my first step. If he's beating me across the face, well, I better be flatter. I better be flatter with my step. I might want to squeeze my splits to help myself out. If he ran some swim move on me and made me fall on my face, well, I probably need to step a little bit deeper to get to maybe his back hip. So kind of understanding, how is he beating me, and should be able to self-correct. So those are really the main things we teach with down block. There's a lot of other things you talk about, like 6-inch step and being violent with your second step and all that. And I'll probably let Coach Gould get on here and go through that. We may have to get him back on here. But for me, those are the main mental things. And then there's a lot of things you could teach as far as drill work. Coach Gould does a whole session for me at the Gun T Clinic where he goes through and all their steps and drills and stuff they do. But the main things are knowing what's the concept of the play, where can I not get beat, and how can I self-adjust if I'm getting beat.
Yeah, the down block is so special, I think, because it is so simple. But kids are still kids, man, and they allow their eyes to deceive them sometimes. You talked about technique by these defensive linemen. They're not circles or X's or whatever you want to draw them as on a piece of paper, right? They're taught to do things too. Fight pressure with pressure, how to destroy or destruct a down block. There's lots of things we're teaching our D linemen to make sure they're still in the play at the end of the day. And so giving your down blockers the tools to kind of stay on the advantage, I think, is super important. One thing we see with our guys is if they go to down block and that guy disappears, they stunt him, he rolls inside, whatever. If they swing and miss, they kind of panic. Like, I'm supposed to be causing chaos right here, right now, and that guy's gone. Where's my next deal? And we teach them tracks. We teach them gap down backer. We teach them all the same things. But they still, man, it seems like if they don't make contact on their first two steps, they kind of get that deer in the headlights, like, oh no. They'll either completely stop their feet or they start chasing like the free safety or something. I don't know if he's just the next guy they can see. But now they're 5 yards downfield and there's a huge seam inside of that down block, right? So getting them to understand and we're talking about marrying it to these pulling linemen, they have to understand who is coming around, why it's so imperative they build the wall. You may not touch a soul, but that we have 3 down blocking linemen butts lined up in a wall. We've built the wall. The rest of it will work itself out, right? We try not to worry. We don't bother ourselves about people outside the kick man. We know that we're going to pull and wrap a guy. Just build the wall. So sometimes getting them to just understand what we're trying to do is as important as anything else in case something goes wrong. Maybe that guy disappears and they blitzed all the linebackers off the weak side. Mm-hmm. You may show up to just green grass. Well, enjoy it. Have a picnic while you build the wall. Just do your job and everything will be okay. You made another point there. Dang, I forgot what it was. Mm-hmm. I was trying to write it down, but it was my turn to talk. And I said, no, I'll just fly through here. Oh, well. Anyway, down blocks, very important. It's just like everything else in gap scheme. Just do your job. It's simple enough. You don't have to get too extravagant. As a player, they need to understand that. They won't. Their eyes are always going to lie to them, and they'll think they need to do more. Because once again, as coaches, we also tell them find work all the time, right? Hey, don't do nothing, find work. And sometimes our down blockers can find the wrong work. So I think building the wall is the most important. I feel like I had another really good point here, Coach, and I'm going to have to skip it because I don't know what it is. So that's okay. All right, man. I think we've checked all the boxes minus the thing that I'm just completely blanking on. We talked to you guys about what the benefits of gap scheme are, kind of what are some of those coaching points to your pulling linemen. And I think it's really imperative to understand it doesn't matter which gap scheme play you want to run. All of this is the same. You can run duo where there's no puller. You still have a kick man to coach up, right? You still have to have a kick to the front side of duo. And then everything else is just doubles. You're just simplifying the rules by you're just adding one and taking away another. If you could be a GTGH counter team, be a buck sweep team, pin and pull team. It doesn't matter how you designate who's pulling. Their teaching should be the same. I do remember what it was now. It is also imperative that when we're talking down blocks, you have to incorporate your tight ends, your H-backs, whoever's going to be the front side of that play on doing down blocks the exact same as everyone else, because they can still, you're a center guard tackle. If you're a GH team, they can all block down perfect. But now that front side tight end who you were using to build a bigger wall gets crazy and chases a free safety. We still have a seam that's unaccounted for inside of our kick man. And so, that's where I was really wanting to go with it, is just make sure that if you're a team that's doing this, running buck, running power, running counter, that all of those tight ends, all of those wings, if you have wide receivers you're going to attach to the line down there real tight, especially if they're behind the tackle, they all have to know what they're doing. They become offensive linemen, right? It's no different than when you're blitzing your linebackers. They become D linemen, whether you like it or not. They have to know what a D lineman's reads are. Same thing here. If you want to attach them and get them in there to the game of football, if you add to the surface, so does the defense. You better know how to handle that surface. And it's a lot of times it is just a bunch of down blocks. So, yes, that was my last point. It's just if you're teaching your linemen how to down block is great, but you also have to teach those accessory players who are going to be in there trying to do the same job so that they don't screw it up for everybody else. All right, now we really checked all the box. Let's jump into our situation of the week, Coach. Kind of a special one for you here. And you almost went through this last week. Situation's this. It's late in the season. You had a tough district game, but you pulled ahead by 21. Pretty late in the game. We'll call it fourth quarter. Their offense is very well known to be explosive, so they could get back into this. They just haven't shown it tonight. You happen to be doing all the right things tonight. You're up by 3 touchdowns. You want to start rotating your starters out because you're thinking playoffs. You want to reduce their reps, keep them as fresh as you can. They've kind of done their job. So how do you handle rotating those positions, both non-key, where obviously we can all rotate D linemen, it seems like, but also your key positions? We don't want to get an all-state tailback or quarterback or whatever injured because we're keeping them out there too long. So what is your thought process on when you're kind of turning those kids down and rotating your backup guys in?
Yeah, I think the last probably 3 conference games we've kind of had similar. We, 2 of the 3 we didn't quite get to the mercy rule, which Arkansas is nice because you get to 35 and the clock runs, so it's almost impossible to come back. But we had Friday night, we were up. I think at one point we ended up winning 38-6. We were up maybe 31-6 when we started having that discussion. But we knew they were talented. They could score, so you're kind of like, okay, who do we take out? Who do we not take out? Because like you mentioned, you're going to feel awful getting a kid hurt in a game. You're up 20-plus points in the third or fourth quarter. But I've been around too often where I've seen you take your foot off the gas and things can go crazy in high school football. So for us, usually we will leave our offensive line out, leave them out there, and then we'll start kind of getting the ball to different kids, not kids that are, JV only kids, but it might be, okay, maybe we're going to give the ball to our second wing back or run the ball with our slot receiver who hadn't really touched it much, try to get him going a little bit. So we take some of the miles off of our running back and our quarterback. For us, those are the guys that have the most mileage because they get the ball the most. So try to keep them in our offense. We're trying to keep scoring points. We're trying to maybe limit who's out there. And then defensively, it's a little tougher on defense, really, because usually you pull up the wrong guy on defense, it can make a really, really big deal. I think Friday night we pulled my son came out at inside linebacker, but we kept the other senior out there to make sure we get lined up, and we pulled our quarterback off the field from defense, but we put a very competent kid at corner, and we did that for one drive. On the next drive, okay, we're still up, and now there's only 8 or 9 minutes left. Let's pull that other senior off the field and put a younger guy out there. It's a delicate balance. I'd give you a word of wisdom as an older coach who's been around. Don't pull your foot off the gas too early, because, man, it's hard to put it back on there. Like, it's really hard to pull it off and then put it back on there. So a lot of times we might leave our starters out there. We might just call plays that go to different kids, like kids that aren't as that don't get the ball as much. Now they're getting the ball. Doesn't mean we're throwing it. We might be handing it to them, but we're trying to make sure we're keeping our main guys out there, because if it ever does turn a little bit, you still got your starters out there and you could run whatever you need to run. So yeah. I'm of the mindset that until you get to where it's clearly you've won the game, you better keep your foot on the gas, but you do want to kind of be smart calling plays. And if you got a guy playing both ways, that might be a time to get him off one side or the other.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where it's like you're almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're right, because if you go out and have no injuries and you coast to a victory, well, you're the smartest coach ever. Look at that. He didn't take his foot off the gas. We got the decisively won. But you go out and have one bad play and one injury, and people are like, oh, my God, coach, I can't believe you had that starter out there. So it's like you're never going to make everyone happy. We had a situation last year where I think we were only up like 14 maybe, and there was 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and they stopped it. We were down like 3rd and medium, about around the 50-yard line, and we had a stud tailback. And we'd actually already pulled him. We were already kind of getting some other guys the ball. And we made the decision to put him back out there. Like, let's go get this first down and let's ice this game. He goes out there. Not only did he not get the first down, but then he comes hobbling off. So we got the worst of both worlds. We didn't achieve our goal. Mm-hmm. And now our stud is hurt. But we got to punt it back to them, and they have plenty of time to make this a game. So it kind of got, I 100% agree with what you said. We should have probably never taken him off the field. No. Right? Just run your workhorse, because getting him back out there.
You can keep those kids on the field and use them as a decoy.
Yeah.
You fake it to him and hand it to somebody else.
Yeah. So that's probably should have been what we did. But, hindsight's 20/20. We're always learning. Those other kids need reps too. We need them to make a deeper run in the playoffs. And you never know when he's going to get hurt on a regular down in a regular game. So it is a fine balance. You're never going to make anyone happy. So just do, I think, what makes sense to you. As long as you have some kind of common sense.
Yeah, we had a game last year. We were 9-0 and had sewn everything up. And we're playing a team that was playing had a lot more to play for. And I look up, man, and it's 30, 36, 32. I mean, we're having to keep playing our starters deep into the game. And I was scared the whole time. I'll get one of these kids hurt. I'm going to feel terrible. But our kids and our coaches, we wanted to continue to play the game the way it's meant to be played. And
that's right. It's
hard at the high school level to punt a game. Like I don't really feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah. I mean, if you get NFL, those guys will just rest all the starters, right? Like, fine, all the backups are starting. That way it's known from the beginning. We don't care what the outcome of this is. We're getting reps. It's a little harder in high school when you only get 10 of those things. And 10-0 looks really good for recruiting.
And momentum. And I think momentum. I mean, it's
fun momentum. Yeah.
You're going to playoffs getting beat by a 5 seed,
Right. Yeah. 100%. Sweet. All right. One last time, I want to mention our sponsors, Ace Sports. Contact mark.bridges@acesports.com, or you can holler at me and I'll send you over to him. If you're just looking for you want an informal introduction to what all's going on over there, I can get on a phone call or email or whatever. We can talk about it. Winning Edge Performance Analytics. I know it's getting late in the season, but that is something you can really get good at for next year. You do get it for the whole year. So contact Doug. If you have any issues there, Doug will make it right. He's an excellent guy. WinningEdgePerformanceAnalytics.com. Go get you some Gun Tee books. I think, when does 7.0 come out, Coach?
Hopefully here in a couple months. And then I've got the 0-10 to 10-0 book coming out too. So there should be 2 books coming out pretty quickly here. I'm trying to, obviously in season, it's tough. So trying to get them finished up.
For sure. Social media, I'm at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Trying to get my YouTube going again. So I'm going to do a little 30 for 30 series, just 30 kind of very basic football videos every day for 30 days and get the YouTube back doing things. I have officially shut down my Patreon. I was going to help in a little bit of coaches, but it feels awkward, right? When you start selling ball and you work for two guys who sell ball, and then like you're just really trying to help people. So, it's kind of being the third wheel at the party. So for right now, the Patreon is shut down. So guys, jump over to YouTube. If you got any questions, you can shoot me an email. Kenny, where can we find you at?
And all things FB Coach Simpson. So FB Coach Simpson at Gmail for my email, FBCoachSimpson.com, where all the books and stuff are, and then at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter.
Perfect. Podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex very more simple or very simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.